Now we pass to the first panel of this event, where I'm really very honored to have two representatives of the consumers, of the stakeholders that are the recipients of the services that we are talking today. In this panel, we are going to hear from Alejandro Moledo, who is the Deputy Director of the European Disability Forum, an umbrella organization of persons with disabilities, his views about how to make accessible and what is going on, what needs to happen in order to make sure that persons with disabilities benefit on equal basis with others from consumer banking services. It's also an honor to have Heidrun Molenkov, with whom also I have been working for many, many years in the area of ICT accessibility. She's the president of Age Platform Europe, an organization that brings older persons and the representative organizations, also some service providers of older persons together. And also we are going to see how older persons face this evolution in financial and consumer banking services. So we would like really also to make this session interactive. So if you have questions, if you have comments, please prepare yourselves while our two speakers deliver first
organization of the company. And here I would like to briefly refer to one of the European standards that we have at the moment, and actually is one of the standards that are being revised to support the implementation of the Accessibility Act. Is not as known as the ICT accessibility standard, and I mean the standard on design for all, which is the European term for universal design. So this is an approach that an organization can take in order to come up with greater accessibility outcomes, no matter which sector, which kind of purpose this organization has. It can be an NGO, it can be a bank, it can be a public authority. So this standard, the EN 17161, EN 17161. Yeah, we need to remember pins and standards numbers as well. This standard actually gives a set of recommendations and requirements to an organization on how to integrate a universal design approach. So to design the process, the internal processes, the internal policies and organization in order to have as a result greater accessibility, greater usability for users. Again, no matter what sector is referring to. And now moving into the specifics of the Accessibility Act, I mean, there are elements, as I mentioned, that are kind of clear, and we do have in the European Union a good set of technical standards to support it. And here we can refer to the products, mostly ATMs and payment terminals, which have a clear technical standard to support the developers and basically for the banks when they procure these technologies to say, hey, I need my ATM accessible. We need to procure payment terminals accessible. So we need to refer to the ICT accessibility standard and on another number, EN 301549. EN 301549 that has specific technical requirements to avoid those situations that Lars was referring to. So an example can be that the ATM has a mini jack, so for the blind person to use headphones, and the ATM should have built in a screen reader that could ensure privacy in navigating the interface, the user interface of the device. So here we have a clear standard to refer to, a clear set of technical requirements that the manufacturers of these products should follow by the request of the banks. And another element which has been already mentioned, for which we have really clear set of technical requirements that can be used, is the digital elements. Here we are talking about websites, mobile applications, we're talking about digital documents, which usually are very difficult to navigate, those inaccessible PDFs. Maybe it's time to move to another more accessible format such as EPUB, but that's my personal view. So for these requirements, we do have legislation in place for the public sector, and the Accessibility Act basically mirrors those requirements. Here we have an international standard that is part of the European one that I mentioned before. So for the digital accessibility elements, we do have also the resources to make it possible. And then lastly, which are mainly the elements that may need more discussion today as well, are those related to information and support services. Here, when we surveyed our members and people with disabilities about the barriers in the banking sector, many people refer to information, many people refer to problems in accessing, support, and the bank only provides one means of communication, for example, by phone, or for example, by an online chat. Now this is changing, but a key word and a key concept that I want you to take away is multimodality. Here, when it comes to information and when it comes to support services, it is important to allow different means of communication for the user to interact with the bank. It is important not to have just the digital means, but also to ensure that there is the possibility to either call by phone, either go to a bank office, and with no discrimination, because we have also seen that in some cases, if you go to the bank office, then you need to pay more than if you do it online. So this, in our point of view, is a bit of a discriminatory practice. So ensuring this multimodality should be a core element of the development of the services. For this, we are at the moment developing another European standard, because the Accessibility Act refers to harmonized standards as a means to demonstrate compliance. So it's important that the banking sector is also active in the standardization development that is taking place now. As for printed information, for example, is one of the standards that is being developing from scratch, or support services, which is another one that is being developing from the beginning. In this regard, this multimodality should also be included in the elements that are more specific for the banking services included in the Act, because if you have read the nerdy part of the legislation, which is the one that we love the most, is the annex of the Accessibility Act. There you can see not only general accessibility requirements, but also specific ones. And for the banking services, there are two specific requirements which were actually proposed, or well, we actually intervene in the legislative process as much as we could. Big hot issues that we've heard in the banking sector being discussed, and also with our members, is the issue of understandability. Every time we asked our members, this has been one of the top elements that was highlighted. Like, financial information is way too difficult. I mean, and don't get me wrong, we obviously welcome any initiatives to support and to improve the financial literacy of people with disabilities, goes by the by, but we shouldn't put the burden just on the users. We shouldn't put the burden just on the consumers to be able to understand all financial information as experts in finance. That is, I know that I'm exaggerating, but it is important that the banking sector, but not only the banking sector, all sectors in general, take a more proactive approach when it comes to understandability, to ensure that the information is easier to understand for people in general, which can also benefit not only people with mild intellectual disabilities, for example, but also certain older people or even non-native speakers. So that is why when we were discussing these requirements, we thought, okay, and that is one of the most difficult questions in the accessibility world, how we ensure that information is understandable. And the way that the legislation points at is the Council of Europe Framework for Languages, pointing at specific level of complexity that the text, the information provided to the user shouldn't exceed. And back then, it looked like, oh, it's going to be too difficult. But nowadays, with artificial intelligence, this is one of the applications that we see artificial intelligence helping the economic operators very much. So everyone has done it, put a text in ChatGPT and summarize it, make it easier to understand. Similar elements can be explored by the sector to ensure that the information provided to the users is actually understandable. And I just want to conclude by stating one of the elements. Well, first of all, before, one of the elements that were not included was not included in the Accessibility Act, but I think everybody knows that this is obvious, is the built environment. It is important as well that the built environment in which the service is provided is also accessible. It wouldn't make sense to have an ATM that is accessible in an inaccessible bank office. And just to conclude, and now for sure, is that it is important to invest in accessibility in-house. So it's not something that you can do overnight and then that's it. It's not a project that you outsource somebody and now it's done. It needs to be integrated in the organization, in the bank, in the company. And another element that was also mentioned this morning, and I will conclude with this, is to involve users. To hire persons with disabilities is a preferred option, obviously, that will bring the expertise, the lived experience within the organization, but checking with the users on the solutions that you are developing in the banking sector can also guarantee success in the solutions that you will put forward for the implementation of the Accessibility Act. So I will leave it there and happy to answer any question afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alejandro, for putting on the table so many different issues that are relevant to the discussion of today. We've heard about this, all the standards available, and this is something that I would like to highlight, that we continue through the issuing of as European Commission, the issuing of a standardization request, and I give you another number, mandate 587, requesting the modernization of 3 existing standards and the development of 3 new ones. I would like to say that many of the issues raised in terms of privacy, security, authentication were discussed when we were preparing the directive, when we were negotiating the directive. And while Alejandro made a plea for the role of legislation, I would like to share with you a little anecdote that happened when we were negotiating the act and what made a turning point to be sure that consumer banking services would be included. Because many of these issues that have been mentioned as a challenge are solved in other parts of the world. In the case of the US, for example, ATMs are accessible. You have a plug and you put a headphone and you can hear in a private way and interact with the device. Now, when we were doing the negotiations, there were questions about why do we need legislation? And in fact, in the building of the council where we were negotiating, the ATM that was placed there, which was an US imported machine, had a socket for putting the headphone, but the software had been disenabled. The machine was prepared, the device, the solution was there, but it was not working. So I would like to say this because we need to put together, as Alejandro was saying, the solutions, the technical solutions, and the legislations and the clarity and information to the users. Well, this was just an anecdote to illustrate the need to put all these things together. But now, without more delay, I pass the floor to Hydro, who is going to share with us the views from older persons and experience in getting access and in an equal basis with others to financial and consumer banking services. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to present to you the view of Age Platform. Age Platform is the largest European network of and for older persons with about 100 member organizations. And for us and our member organizations, accessibility has always been a very important issue. I personally was able to represent AGE for many years at the Academic Network for European Disability Experts. That's where we met, Emma. Thank you. And the area of banking services has always been important for us, and although it is not the core of our activities. And therefore, we are working together a lot with the European Consumers Organization in that field, and also with EDF. So I thank you as well for raising already many issues which are important for older persons as well, and especially for older persons who experience disabilities. So access to cash, the impact of digitalization and fraud are particularly important for us and our members. I would like to position the question of banking services in the larger context of general digitalization, because we know we all make the experience that digitalization has penetrated in practically all areas of life. And this means for older persons, especially, losing autonomy and independence. Until the introduction of the digital services and devices, they have been able to manage their everyday life on an individual, independent basis. And now suddenly, if they are not able to afford the devices, if they are not able to use them adequately, they are dependent on help. And this is something nobody wants to experience, that suddenly you lose your autonomy and independence. They risk financial abuse because you depend on other persons or the system to support you. And also privacy is at stake. And this is becoming even more difficult and risky with so-called artificial intelligence. When you can no longer distinguish, is it really a person who is talking to you, or is it a bot? Is it a machine? So you lose trust in what you do, in the services you need. And I think this is very risky and very difficult for a society if you do no longer know whom and what you can trust. In addition, digitalization creates and reinforces social and structural inequality. Commissioner Albuquerque already mentioned the gap between those who are able to use the respective devices and services and those who are not. And this is especially the case when multiple discrimination comes. For instance, those who are old and have disabilities, or ethnicity combined with a disability, or any other, maybe even gender can be such a discriminatory aspect. Just some examples to illustrate this. Figures from Eurostat. People doing internet banking in 2024 were 76% of people aged 25 to 64, and about 60% people aged 65 to 74. This means that about 40% are not doing internet banking. And there are huge discrepancies among and between European countries. Another example from Belgium, 19% of Belgians over the age of 16 are outside the digital financial circuit. This means that 1.9 million people aged between 16 and 89 are not using digital banking. Similar inequalities exist in terms of the equipment with and the possible use of digital devices and systems. We have known and discussed the digital divide between the so-called digital natives and older population groups for a long time. This gap remains, particularly with respect to high-aged people, although it appears to be gradually decreasing, at least in Europe. What is not getting smaller is the structural and socially conditioned digital divide. The gap between people who live in an area with good broadband connection, who have the latest equipment, who can also use these devices and systems for their interests and needs, and those who lack these conditions for digital participation persists. Likewise, the existing shortcomings regarding the lack of digital infrastructure, the exclusion of marginalized and poorer people because of the costs, the manageability of digital devices and applications, their data security deficiencies, and the risk of threatening personal rights and compromising the user's dignity have been discussed time and again for years. Despite existing guidelines and ethics codes, despite comprehensive international aging and health programs, despite the calls and the highest levels to bridge the digital divide, and even despite many regional or topic-specific laws, as we heard already today, even despite these laws, hardly anything has changed as a result. However, based on Article 15 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, everyone has the right to enjoy the benefits of scientific progress and its applications. Scientific progress naturally also includes technical developments, such as digital devices, assistive technologies, smart home systems, and robotics, as well as digital health systems and the applications and services they enable. Therefore, we hope that the entry into force of the European Accessibility Act will be a real game changer to improve the situation. Our expectations and demands are to provide appropriate options for everyone who wants to use available technologies and services to do so. This must include adequate learning opportunities and respective training programs, as digital literacy is a prerequisite for a competent digital participation. But I agree with you, Alejandro, that we should not put the burden only to the users, but that devices and services must become easier to use. Hence, banking services must be accessible and affordable for all older persons, whether they wish or not to benefit from digital applications. However, and this is also something Commissioner Albuquerque mentioned already, the right to remain offline must also be guaranteed. Alternative options must remain available to cover for diverse needs, abilities, and preferences. They must remain, not least because no technical system always and everywhere works with 100% security. To achieve these goals, we call for joining forces and to working all together, taking the best expertise of each and everyone from the user perspective side, older people, persons with disabilities, and consumer organizations. They all bring different perspectives, which are crucial to consider the diversity of users. This means making sure there is a dialogue with the banking sector and the main actors in the field. Apart from age as organization, age members are active in their respective countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this, for sharing these views of older persons and putting the emphasis on the dialogue to overcome the challenges faced when related to digitalization, fraud, abuse, and cash, and finding together solutions for the benefit of older consumers too. Which, by the way, there is a very strong overlap between disability and aging. The majority of persons with disabilities are older persons, and the majority of older persons are persons with disabilities. That's what European statistics say, and that's why it's so important to have these two groups here together in order to find solutions and have that dialogue together with the sector. Now, I know we're running a little bit late, but I would like to open the floor for a question. I see one question over there, so please take the phone. Oh, the phone, sorry, the microphone. The microphone and...
Thank you, Ima. It's a question actually from the chat. We have more than 300 people attending the event as well online. And one of the questions was regarding possible strategies at European level to address issues of interpretation and application of directives and standards by member states and by the industry. And so if one of you could please elaborate on one of these possible strategies to address this.
So first of all, I think what we heard here today is very important to refine the directives in all areas and to combine them. I think the more differentiation we have, the more we need coordination of the different strands. So, and we as age, we try to follow all the efforts at the European level. We give our comments. We try to make the commissioners and those who work on the different issues not to forget older persons and also the diversity, the heterogeneity of older persons. Older persons, this can be people aged 60, but also aged 90. And no one would try to combine the needs of a 1-year-old child and a 30-year-old person in one group. So really we have to differentiate. And not only by age, but also by education, by experiences, by the former profession, because this makes a big difference in how and what somebody wants and can perform and do. So this is important to respect the diverse needs and preconditions of older persons.
Okay, thank you very much for these insights. Alejandro, would you like to add something? And then I will say maybe a few words too.
Well, looking at from an internal viewpoint of any organization that is affected by or wants to implement the Accessibility Act or accessibility in general, this first European standard that I mentioned that is currently being reviewed, the one on design for all approach, accessibility following a design for all approach. This one is very much aligned with and probably the colleague from the banking sector will know the ISO 9000 on quality management. So it does give kind of like a clear roadmap as well, I would say, internally on what are the elements that they need to put in place in order to come up with a comprehensive approach that would look at from end to end, would look at the mission of the organization, the internal procedures, internal policies, and how they can maximize accessibility outcomes internally. So procedures that could really, with the aim of reaching that goal, which is very much linked to, as I said, to usability, quality of the service, and so forth. So in terms of strategy, from the economic operators' point of view, in this case of banking services, I think this could be a good approach. But I will leave Imma to answer from more general strategies at EU level.
Well, thank you, Alejandro, also for those reflections. I would like to make 3 points in relation to this question. First, that the Accessibility Act very much relays on concepts, definitions, practices that are coming from the different sectors. In this case, the consumer banking, the banking sector. And to that end, to make sure that we have coherent approach across the work in the Commission. We closely work with our colleagues of DG FISMA who have been participating, were participated in the negotiations. And now when we have issues, questions of clarification, we reach out also to them to make sure that we have a common understanding, that we transmit that common understanding outside the Commission. The second point is a disclaimer. The Commission is not there to interpret EU law. For that, we have the European Court of Justice, but we can facilitate, we can explain, but at the end, yes, it's an important thing I need to say. And finally, I have been engaging with banking organizations throughout the preparation, but also then before the transposition. And there is one thing that I have, a plea that I have done to you. Please participate in the making of the standards. We at the Commission do not make the standards. The standards are done by the sectors. Standards are a way of implementing the requirements of the directive. They help to clarify its contents, but it's done by stakeholders. And we need the banking stakeholders around the table to make sure that your views are also presented. So I have been inviting all of you and encouraging to participate, to contribute for the documents, which are the standards, to be clear and responding also to your needs. I'm looking to see if we have a bit of time for one more question or whether we should stop now. Okay. We have to stop now, and I would like to thank my 2 panelists and join me in a big applause.